We've had it happen to us in the past where the IT team really didn't want to work too closely with us. They were more afraid if we discover a vulnerability, it's going to make them look bad to the end client.
Our mission is simple: to make cybersecurity easier. We're not here to get you fired.
You don't want to wait until you have a heart attack. It's a little late at that point in time.
Vulnerabilities exist. They're always going to exist. Having an assessment done where we identify that there's a finding or a vulnerability that exists, it's a positive because we found it, not the attacker.
It can be really hard to trust that another company is going to be as good as you are.
It doesn't matter if you're a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 pen test or you're a $50,000 pen test. We treat you the exact same across the board.
When the client has questions that are more technical, they don't have to scramble. We're available to support no matter what.
Finding vulnerabilities before they're exploited is the key.
Welcome back to the MainNerve Cybersecurity podcast, where we focus on making cybersecurity work for you and for your clients. Today, we're diving into partnerships, how we support our partners, why our reports are designed to help you sell additional services, and most importantly, how we make you look good in front of your clients. Because in this industry, vulnerabilities aren't a sign of failure, they're an opportunity for growth. Reese, what makes a strong cybersecurity partnership different from just being another vendor?
That's actually a good question. We're not trying to be everything. We're actually specializing in offensive security, which makes us a better partner, in my opinion. There are a ton of SOCs and SIMs out there. We don't want to be like them. Our goal is to be ourselves, an extension of your team, and not a competition for your team.
And how do we act as an extension of our partners' teams instead of competing with them?
Basically, we're like an arm on a body where there's an extension that runs off. We like to see ourselves as actually inside of the corporation or inside the business as an entity within itself. We view every partnership the same. Our ultimate goal is to make our partners shine, make our partners look good. Our success to us is measured more of how well our partners look to the end client. So Sheena, what's one of the biggest frustrations partners face with other providers, and how do we remove that friction?
There are a couple of different frustrations that partners face. One of the things that they experience sometimes is working with vendors who are not US based. So that could be something like, um, the people they talk to maybe have an accent or something like that, or there's a big time lag between getting responses. We're US based, and so that means that we don't have to worry about time zone issues or anything like that. Sometimes they experience lack of communication where they'll sign for a pen test and then all of a sudden the vendor just goes dark and then they receive a report whenever later. It might be a month, 2 months, or something like that. But we keep our partners updated on the whole process. They know that when they send the proposal over, that somebody from our delivery team should be reaching out. Our delivery team makes sure that they know when testing is supposed to begin and end, who the tester is. There's a little bit of communication with signing the rules of engagement. And then when testing starts, the tester will send an email letting them know that testing is beginning and when it has ended. That way they have an idea of when they should be receiving the report thereafter. Another thing that they experience is slow turnarounds and delays. A lot of times the vendors will take forever to actually get the test started. Some of that could just be the fact that they are extremely busy, their calendars are completely booked, so they can't get the partners in a timely manner. If the partner has a rush for any reason, the client forgot that they needed to get a pen test or something like that, it can be really hard to get it scheduled if they have that really booked calendar. So what we do is we save a little bit of time on all of our calendars to make sure that they can get in a rush if they need it. And we work really hard to keep things streamlined so that we're constantly running tests, but making sure that they're up to par too.
So to me, there's a lot of flexibility. Why is flexibility so important, especially when it comes to white labeling and co-branding?
Flexibility is so important for all of our partners because of the fact that some partners will have clients that want to work directly with them, and then they might have clients that want to work directly with us. So our partner program is set up so that they can do both. That means that when they have the clients that want to work directly with them, We let them handle everything. We give them any information that they might need to be able to either sell the services or answer technical questions. And then for those clients that wanna work directly with us, they feel that having their MSP or MSSP provide the services is kind of a conflict of interest, then we can work directly with them, kind of in between where a lot of times that MSP is the one who has all of the information, the end client doesn't. They know basically nothing. That's why they've hired somebody else to handle it. We can work with both the end client and the partner to make sure that we gather everything for the test.
So, MainNerve, I know one of our biggest things is our engagement model. What do partners value most about our engagement model?
There's a couple, but one of the things that I think of most is the fact that make we've streamlined our scoping and delivery to the point where it makes it much quicker for our partners to be able to get testing done. With the scoping, we provide scope questions in a document format so they can send that to their client and then provide it to us. Or we're again flexible about a lot of that. So if the client doesn't know all of the information, the partner can capture things by phone calls or something like that and give us what they have, and we can work with them to figure out the absolute necessary things for scoping versus things that are nice to have. And then the same thing with delivery. We try to keep the emails as minimal as possible while still keeping everybody updated. The other thing is that the partners have a peace of mind. So when the client has questions that are more technical, they don't have to scramble. We're available to support no matter what. And so moving on to talking about the reports, John, what makes our reports useful beyond just checking a compliance box?
Our reports are written in a format that makes them easy to understand by people who are tech savvy and people who are not tech savvy. We give them more than just a you passed or you failed type of report. We provide them with risk ratings, whether we're using the CVSS scoring or if we're using our modified DREAD version, which is um, really just a way of expressing in simple terms what the concerns and risks are for clients that have a less robust and a less mature security uh, process. With our reports, not only will we say, hey, here's the finding, we're going to let you know how we found that finding so that you can go and replicate it on your own. Then we're going to let you know basically how you can fix it, right? So instead of just providing you with a report that is going to get filed away as a here, we checked the box and this report really has no value other than to say that we checked that box. um, we provide you with a report that explains what your issues are, how you can fix them, and why you should fix them.
And how can partners use reports as a springboard for conversations about additional services?
Well, so with any kind of a report that shows vulnerabilities, that automatically brings up the how are we going to fix those vulnerabilities? And when you have a partner that is, for example, a partner that deals with establishing infrastructure for networks, where they're going in and they're actually building out the network, or they're maintaining a network. And the client has some really old end of life Cisco switches or a Fortinet firewall that's 10 years old. And that partner has been struggling to get them to make that purchase to upgrade that system, that switch, that firewall. When they get the report from us, and the report from us shows that this is how we were able to breach your network because we were able to take advantage of this 5-year-old vulnerability or this 10-year-old vulnerability, or in some cases, 20-year-old vulnerability in a particular piece of equipment that for their client has been, it works, so why mess with it kind of mentality. They, they can show this report to show this is how we got in. This is the thing you need to fix. You need to allow us to help you have a better and stronger infrastructure by allowing us to make this this acquisition or this purchase and install this software or this whatever solution it is that addresses that need.
So what you're saying is, in this example anyway, that legacy system that the IT provider probably already told the client needs to be replaced. This is another way that they can show that it needs to be replaced.
Yes, it basically is a reinforcement of what our partners are telling their clients, um, and it's just another way to reinforce that.
And you also mentioned that our reports can be good for those who are more technical, but also non technical. Why is it important to balance executive level clarity with the technical depth in reporting?
There are times when it's difficult for those that speak the tech language to clearly articulate in a manner that their senior staff can understand what risks are currently present. So by providing a report where we have taken the effort to convert that tech speak into plain language that a senior level individual can understand, not because they can't read English, but because there's a lot of tech words in there, and the senior staff doesn't necessarily know what a TCP session is or something like that. Um, we break it down in a manner that they can understand, so it makes it easier for the technical folks who are on the keyboard, managing the networks to get that buy-in because now the C-suite or the senior level individuals, they have a clear idea of what is going on, what is being fixed or what needs to be fixed and why it needs to be fixed. So by giving them that plain language as opposed to the technical language, they can better understand why they need to make the changes that they need to make. And then they can better understand what that return on investment, which is hard to see sometimes with security, would look like.
And I can second that. If you don't have the top guy that's making or gal making the decisions, understanding what's going on, they're not going to filter the money down.
And so how do we make sure that the reports are easy for clients and or partners to act on?
Um, so the way that reports are generated by us, we provide with a section that says this is how you read this report. So you kind of have an understanding of what's coming in the report. Then in the executive summary, we break down in simple terms what the big concerns are. And that information can then be given to the C suite in a nice, concise manner. Then we break down what methodology was used for generating not just the report, but for the test that we performed and the assessment that we performed for the client via the partner. So they have an understanding of what the mindset was of the tester when they perform the assessment. Then we have the section that's more tech savvy, where we break down exactly what was being done and um, how the finding was identified, what the concerns are with that particular finding. We put in screenshots to make it clear and easy to understand, and then we provide remediation mechanisms for how to fix it. Then the follow-on section is a risk rating system. Depending upon if it's CVSS, then the risk rating in that section will give a detailed explanation of how CVSS works, so they don't have to go look it up somewhere else. It's right there in the report. And then we'll have each finding will be defined by that risk rating. If we're using our modified version of DREAD, then we will detail what each section means and what the concerns are with each one. And then we will give a risk rating based off of that. If there's anything to attach to the document, in some cases there may be CSV file, about to say CVS, but we're not trying to plug them. A CSV file that details easily ingestible information with regard to the assessment that was performed that wouldn't look good in the report. So we attach it via an add on to the end of the report. So To kind of simplify or summarize, executives, they kind of need a clear risk narrative. They need something that is easy for them to ingest that lets them know in terms of cost, downtime, or reputational risks that may apply. And so having that clear language gives them the ability to correlate that to their business needs from that executive level, which isn't necessarily at the technical level. At the same time, balancing it out, the tech staff, they need that detailed evidence of instructions, right? So um, they need to know exactly how the test was uh, successful at finding a vulnerability, what payload was used, what was the configuration weakness exactly, and how do I fix it? If you go too far to the executive side, then IT gets nothing out of that report, right? It's all fluffy, high level language, but that means that an IT person looking at this report is going to have to go reinvent the wheel. If you go too far over to the technical side of things, and the executives, they're going to tune out. You know, you start talking about TCP sessions and TLS uh, cipher protocols and stuff like that don't mean anything to them. So they're just going to ignore that jargon and tune out and wait for the opportunity to get to the next piece. Or they may end up having to ask questions, and now your IT folks have to try to figure out a way to explain it to the senior staff. So with our reports, because we balance both sides, we give them the executive side they need, we give them the technical side they need. Leadership knows how to go about getting the money approval, the budget approval, and how to explain what the business concerns are. And the engineers and the IT folks know how to go about actually fixing the issues.
So, another issue that I have run across anyway is that a lot of partners are worried about getting fired when it comes to bringing a pen test company in, or even sometimes clients, their IT team is really worried about that. So, why do you think some partners worry about bringing in a pen testing provider?
That's actually a funny question because we've had it happen to us in the past where the IT team really didn't want to work too closely with us. They're more afraid if we discover a vulnerability, it's going to make them look bad to the end client. Or, they end up finding a vulnerability and they talk directly to the end client without the partner being involved. It's never a good thing. We've had a few instances in the past where we sat down and broke it down what we're actually trying to do and our goal here. Sometimes IT people don't know what cybersecurity people know, and cybersecurity people don't know everything an IT person knows. So it's always nice to have that mix. Do you agree, John?
Yes, I think that having having both sides of the equation is always better than just looking at it from one perspective.
And what would you say our role then is when it comes to partners or even the clients who are stressing about that?
I think the biggest thing is always make our partners look good to the end client. Never jump the gun. Never be a company that just jumps ahead and talks to the end partner without talking to the client or talking. I'm sorry, never talk to the end client without talking to the partner first. If there are email exchanges that go back and forth between the end client and us, and the partner's not on that, we will actually CC them back into the next thread that goes out so they understand that we are not trying to overturn them. We are actually there to collaborate with them all together.
Let me add into that. I think that we also want to make sure that our partners are aware of the what our function really is. Our function is to help them identify risks and concerns so that they can mitigate them for their clients. That shows that the partner is proactive. It shows that they are forward thinking, and it shows that they're not trying to hide anything from their clients. So their clients can be more confident in the product they're getting from our partners.
And along those lines, how do we help frame vulnerabilities as proof of value instead of a sign of failure?
So vulnerabilities exist. They're always going to exist. Um, there is always a potential that someone is going to, especially when you have smaller organizations where a a vulnerability comes out, Microsoft comes up with a fix, but there's a problem with the patch that Microsoft came out with, right? So you can't immediately add that patch in. And then somewhere along the lines, if you don't have a robust enough security posture, you forget about the vulnerability. And then 6 months down the line, somebody finds out that you're vulnerable and they attack you, right? Having a assessment done where we identify that there's a finding or a vulnerability that exists, it's a positive because we found it, not the attacker. So now we can go ahead and fix it instead of coming in after the fact, after the attacker's gotten all they want out of it, and fixing it then. So finding vulnerabilities before they're exploited is the key, and recognizing that you're always going to have a vulnerability in a network. It's just inherent in communication. You can't block it down everywhere all the time, 100%. So being proactive to find them as they pop up gives the partner the ability to show to the client they're proactive, they're looking for the vulnerabilities, they're finding the vulnerabilities, and they're fixing the vulnerabilities, thereby reducing the risk to the client.
Yeah, one of the ways I look at that also is in a medical aspect. You should get your physical every year. You don't want to wait until you have a heart attack. It's a little late at that point in time.
And this might be a little bit of a curveball, but, my brother-in-law works in more of the IT realm, but has a significant understanding of cybersecurity as well. But I know that a lot of times the 2 are kind of separate. There's the IT side of things and there's the cybersecurity side of things. Do you think that that's just because of the fact that, they're slightly different knowledge bases and people just focus on that more? Or is it because cybersecurity is ever evolving and so it's easier to stick with the IT side when you know IT?
So I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. IT's primary focus is to provide availability to a resource, right? Their job is to make sure that everybody else in the company can do their job. So we have for the longest time that has been the focus. Is the resource available? Yes or no? If it's not available, why is it not available? And higher ups don't want to hear, oh, it's not available because that's not it, we can't do it safely, right? So IT folks tend to worry more about making sure that those people that need access have access to a resource. Uh, Security side of the fence is kind of contrary to that. At least for the longest time, it's been how do I make sure that people who shouldn't have access, don't have access. And so there's always been this little buttings of head between the security folks saying that's not secure enough, and the IT folks saying, but now nobody can access the resource. So what's the point of having the resource because you've locked it down to the point that nobody can get it? So they kind of compete with each other, and it's the responsibility of senior staff to evaluate both sides and make a decision as to whether or not the availability of a resource is worth the risk that the security side of the house is talking about. Nowadays, we're trying to get into a more homogenous frame of mind. We're recognizing that access to a resource doesn't necessarily mean you can't be secure. IT folks are learning about security processes and mechanisms. Um, but when it comes down to the end result, you've got a IT department that's responsible for a particular piece of equipment. In their mind, certain things are worth the risk because they may or may not fully understand the concerns. Um, Having a separate organization whose job is to evaluate that security alleviates the chance for conflicts of interest, right? So the IT guys are they don't want to be embarrassed by reporting up that we have this vulnerability. They'd just like to be able to report up. We had 37 people access all the resources they needed to 98.7% of the time. We're doing an awesome job, and which nothing wrong with that. That's a good uptime, I guess. But security's job is to make sure that out of that 98.7% of the time, there wasn't also a couple of bad actors who were also gaining access to the resources that they shouldn't have. So, in summary, the it's not a bad idea for IT folks to be security trained and security aware, but keeping the two organizations separate ensures that a checks and balances that the IT folks are not quietly hiding, not that they would, but the potential is there for it, are quietly hiding concerns and risks that could potentially have business impacts.
I know at MainNerve right now, we like to make our partners shine. So one of the things that I really want to ask you is how do we make our partners shine?
Goodness. So we do that by providing the information to them first and foremost, especially if they're white labeling, so that they can take that information back to their client and make sure that their client understands that they found those vulnerabilities ahead of time. Kind of like John talked about, being proactive, making sure that it's caught before the attackers find it and start exfiltrating information or anything else like that, or even ransomware.
And that brings another point. How do we actually carefully white label?
With that one, what we do is we work directly with the partner, and anytime that the partner has questions that come from either our side or from their end client, they're they're the go-between. So, for instance, during scoping, if there are any questions about the scope information provided, we'll ask the partner to get some clarification and we'll provide exactly what to ask. That way, they don't have to try to figure out what we're asking for and they can get that answer a little bit quicker. They'll send that information to their client. And then when the client gives the information back, whatever the answer is, then that partner can relay it to us. It does take a little bit of extra time in the sense of like, well, why couldn't you get rid of the middleman? But we want to make sure that that partner looks like an expert in what they're selling, regardless of whether it's the IT stuff or if it's more cybersecurity oriented, like what we provide.
And so, John, on that note, we usually sometimes we'll have a post meeting with the client. How do our partners look for that, or do they look for that at all, or they just go with a report and they hand it to their end customer? How does that work out if they want to talk to us?
So some of our partners have clients that are only interested in the report, and so we just provide them the report. But some of our partners have clients that want to have that conversation with us, the testers, to ensure that they have a firm grasp of um, what they're understanding within the report, and it also allows the partner to develop that trust factor with the client, right? So, um, if a partner has a client that wants to have that post conversation, then it's just we set up a meeting, we hop in on the call, we will bring up the report, we go down the line explaining the different things within the report and how their concerns are, or what the concerns are, and then we give the opportunity for the clients to ask the questions of what's the concern here? I'm not fully sure I understand what the risk is, or whatever the concern is that the client has, and then we just answer those questions. Um, that's basically how we do it.
Can you share a story where a partner actually came out looking like a hero?
Like a hero. Um, okay. Give me an example where a partner brought to us a client they had that had inherited uh, a legacy piece of equipment, or a piece of legacy software web application. And the partner had made the recommendation to the client that, hey, this particular web app is pretty old. You should probably get it assessed to make sure that it's up to where it needs to be. It was a medical app, so HIPAA being a factor in this. Um, and so the client was like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and do that." Then the partner reached out to us. We performed an assessment, and we found that they had a an issue where the code had been written poorly in one area, and in that area, they tried to do a check to ensure that um, if the if somebody went to the site or to that particular page and they filled out 5 or 6 different, parameters or form fields, if you will, but they left a few blank, these people had placed in those, a piece of code that says, "Mark all of that as null," right? And it was designed for a specific page to ensure that there wasn't any erroneous data getting put into locations, but it was poorly coded, poorly developed. But the implementation had been site wide, so it was possible to go to a settings page without putting any values in at all and wipe out all the settings for the entire application. And so this was found during testing, luckily on a development aspect of the application. So it didn't wipe out everything. They were able to just reverse it. But the client was very happy with the partner and was very thankful for that recommendation to have that assessed because they would have lost everything had they not had uh, identified that particular concern.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Can you give an example of how a finding turned into an opportunity for a partner?
I could probably give you a lot of them, but, let's see. So one was, performing an external, penetration test with a limited scope, and, uh, one of the testers identified, a web application that the client didn't even really know was there. Like, they knew they had this app, um, but they weren't aware that it was a public facing app. And so it gave our partner the opportunity to go in and reevaluate their entire infrastructure and identify, I guess, do an audit that they were able to perform for the client, and then at the same time get the client to get a penetration test of that application. Another one that was identified, still a web application, might have been a mobile app, depends on how I'm remembering this. But there was a vulnerability within the application itself that should have been something that was picked up early on in development. And so, because of that particular finding, the partner was able to help implement with their client a software development lifecycle process. They were able to help build that out for their client to help them develop their applications more securely from the beginning. So in the first one, it was identifying something that either the client forgot they had or that they just weren't aware of the level of exposure. And so the partner was able to get not just kudos from the client for finding that, but also the opportunity for helping to reassess that new vulnerability or that new application. And then with the other one, it was more about policies and procedures, being able to actually set up and implement for a client the policies and procedures necessary to build a more secure application lifecycle.
So since this segment is about partners and partnerships, we have quite a few partners right now. We have some long-term partners. Sheena, why do you think they stay with MainNerve long term?
There's a couple of reasons that I can think of. One is that it's not just about one successful pen test, it's about being consistent. We consistently show them that we're able to schedule them quickly, that we provide great communication. that we're happy to work with them. I think that's another thing too. They're not just another number. They're not just another client. We know their names. Sometimes we know a little bit more about them because we work with them, and we make sure that it is almost like we're part of the team. I know we say that, but there's that aspect where when you get to know people kinda like at work where you're like, "Hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, you went and did this thing. That's really awesome." And you have that camaraderie that really helps to build the partnership into something more than just another vendor.
Yeah, one of the bigger things I think of also is it doesn't matter if you're a 3 or 4 or $5,000 pen test or you're a $50,000 pen test. We treat you the exact same across the board. There's no difference just because a little more money's there.
Yeah, that's very true. And, in the long run, we're making their lives easier. Making sure that we make it as seamless as possible, that we get them the information as quickly as possible so that their client isn't sitting around going, I don't know what's going on. Are we doing the thing? Um, I've seen even with just like Google reviews where people will complain and say, we purchased something and it never happened, and we asked about it, and they just gave us the runaround and stuff like that, so we make sure that there's communication continually so that people don't ever feel like that.
It's funny you mentioned the Google reviews. By the way, ours are really good. But the biggest compliment we take at MainNerve, at least in my eyes, is they continue to come back and trust us with their customers.
Yeah. What would you say to a partner who's nervous about bringing in outside security testing?
Well, the depends on why they're nervous. The first question I would ask is what makes you nervous about it. Um, in the long run, the nervousnesses that we see from our partners usually stems from the idea of it appearing to be outsourcing uh, the security testing to someone else, right? Um, One of the advantages to performing that is that it alleviates the appearance of a conflict of interest, um, because of the fact that that is a third party that's performing that assessment for them. So it shows to the client not only do we take your security seriously, but we're also confident enough in what we do to let someone else do the assessment and tell us what's wrong so that we can go about fixing it.
And how should partners use vulnerabilities as opportunities instead of setbacks?
So the so it's a frame of mind when you're looking at a vulnerability. If you look at it as a setback, it's you're always going to be looking at it as um, I failed at this, I failed at that. When that's not necessarily always the case. Vulnerability pops out. It's a brand new 0-day vulnerability, and it's in Microsoft, right? So there's nothing you could have done about it. And so its presence is not a it's not a failure on your part. It is work that you need to do now to fix it. But instead of looking at as a I was here in my security posture and now I'm down here, it's more of a now I have an opportunity to one, fix that vulnerability, and two, to potentially implement new policies that will allow us to identify vulnerabilities sooner.
And I think one of the things you want to look at also on the vulnerabilities, you want us to find it, the good guys, and not let the bad guys find it. That's when the problems happen. So, Sheena, based on this podcast, it's about partners. One of the biggest things I want to take away from this, if we have a potential partner watching this right now, what do you want them to take away from this episode?
So many things. So many things. I know you just want one, I'm sure. That sound bite. But
Give us several.
maybe a couple, yeah. Um, you know, one of the biggest things that I would love for anybody who's either a potential partner or even a current partner to understand or remember is that we're always here, that they can ask us questions anytime they need to. Granted, yes, we don't work 24/7, but we will get back to them as quickly as possible and answer with all the information that we have. And the other thing that I can think of is that it can be really hard to trust that another company is gonna be as good as you are. Um, I understand the control issue quite well, and so I would invite them to also test it out on themselves. It's never a bad thing for an MSP to go and get a pen test themselves so that they can see what we find.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the biggest things at MainNerve is we are integrity driven. I promise you, we're not a finger pointing company. We take the finger pointing to fix the finger pointing. That's our
Mhm.
goal.
And as always, we are supporting the Mac Parkman Foundation. That is something that we hold dear to our heart based on somebody who is close to us, whose son passed away because of concussive trauma, so that we are always supporting them no matter what. We have information on our website where you can get to their website as well. And thanks for joining us on today's episode. At MainNerve, our mission is simple: to make cybersecurity easier, more honest, and more effective for both clients and our partners. We're not here to get you fired. We're here to help you look good by uncovering vulnerabilities that are always going to happen and turn them into opportunities to build trust. If you're ready for a partner who supports you, not competes with you, let's talk. Until next time, stay secure and stay confident.